I think it's important because it gives voice to the people. It gives a quantitative, independent assessment of what the public feels, as opposed to what experts or pundits think the public feels. So often it provides a quick corrective on what's thought to be the conventional wisdom about public opinion. There are any number of examples that I could give you about how wrong the experts are here in Washington and New York and elsewhere about public opinion that are revealed by public opinion polls. Well, I think it's the best way of gauging public opinion, doing something that's independent, that's quantitative, that doesn't give just the loud voices a say about how things are going, or doesn't give so-called experts the notion that they know what public opinion is. I think that's what makes public opinion polling pretty important. Qualitative assessments of public opinion, going out and talking to people and understanding the nuance to what's behind the numbers. I think it's awfully important as well. And the other thing is, another measure of public opinion is behavior. How many people are doing this and how many are doing that? You can see those reflections of public opinion in official statistics and market trends and all kinds of things. In lots of ways. First of all, public opinion polling is used, not the kind of polling that I do, but the kind of polling that the political consultants do has been used now for 2 decades to help candidates get elected. It helps shape messages. It helps, most importantly, it helps monitor the great expenditures that political candidates make these days in media. You can't go out and spend millions of dollars with no sense of whether or not it's working until you wake up on election day to find out. With the advent of telephone polling, which began extensively and became the norm in the 1970s, that enabled people to go into business as political pollsters, as opposed to doing what I do and what Gallup does, which is doing independent public opinion polling for the media and for, in our case, for the public itself through the Pew Research Center. But you have the independent media pollsters, you have the partisan pollsters. They do different things. I don't know. It's very hard. It's increasingly hard. A number of media organizations, for example, are taking the least expensive route, and they will do some of these surveys that I think aren't as methodologically sound as what the CBS New York Times poll does, or what Gallup does, or what we do. One of the most important things for people to do in evaluating an opinion poll is look at the question that was asked, look at the inferences that are being drawn from the results of the question, and say to themselves, well, how would I have answered that question, and what would that say about my opinion about what to do next in Iraq? Polling is a tool for leadership. It's not a program for leadership. And you can abuse a tool. You can overuse it. And a leader who looks to the latest poll findings and says, well, that's what I should do, that's not a very good leader. I mean, that's someone who's not taking this poll and saying, well, what am I going to have to do to get public acceptance of my policies? It's someone who is interested in their own election or re-election and their own popularity, rather than genuinely serving the public interest. No, because so often you see poll trend lines reverse themselves. There's a lot of popularity for a particular figure, and all of a sudden goes in a different direction. Look how popular President Bush was for a number of years. If polls were self-fulfilling prophecies, his approval ratings would have never come down. I think that the networks have done a pretty good job of policing, except to insiders, what those early takes on the exit polls have shown. You know, every member of the media political community in Washington by 4 o'clock has known what the early exit polls have been showing in presidential elections, and that has a different set of problems. But in terms of the voters themselves, the networks and the media generally have cleaned up their act, and they're not reporting at 6 o'clock or 7 o'clock what the polls are suggesting, and I don't think there's much risk that voting is being discouraged by these polls. You know, come election day, you know, the day before the election, we put out a poll, and we say this is what we think is going to happen, or this is where the electorate is as of today. And we also talk about what might happen between today and tomorrow. And the world gets to see, since we are on the public record, the world gets to see whether we're right or wrong. Now, having that challenge and having that being put up to that kind of scrutiny, you really work very hard to get it right. One of the great things about my career is I worked with the pioneers. I worked with George Gallup, and I could always remember Gallup being completely flummoxed by people who would accuse him of being, you know, a Republican or a Democrat. And you know what Gallup wanted was to get the damn poll right. And I think that's what most of us who work in the public, not most of us, all of us who work in the public domain. I mean, the worst thing in the world is you've had a poll that's shown consistently this, that, or the other thing, and reality turns out to be something else. Well, we have a very good record, and the polls that I've done have been pretty good. I've had a couple of bullseyes on presidential elections where the numbers were absolutely right, and in every presidential election that I've directed, I've been within the margin of error, so to speak, and sometimes even well within the margin of error, right on the nose. But the one that I'll always remember is I got the New Hampshire primary wrong in 1988. And there's nothing worse than being publicly wrong. It is a humbling experience, because everyone say, "Hey, I thought you said that so-and-so is going to win the New Hampshire primary." And so that, you know, I sincerely hope that somewhere along the line, it doesn't say in my obituary he did this, this, and this, but he got the New Hampshire primary wrong in 1988. I'm just teasing there, I'm sure. I'm hoping it won't, at least. Well, it's easy for us because we go out and keep polling, and we then show that we've learned the lesson. I mean, Gallup, who again I started with back in the late '60s. You know, he was wrong in '48. It shaped views about public opinion polling. Certainly shaped his notion, shaped his business, and a lot. You know, and that was an extraordinary event in his life and in his career and in the course of polling. God, there were congressional hearings about how could all the polls get it wrong, and what he did is he turned his methodology over to a great statistician at Gallup, and they revamped what they were doing. I mean, you learn from these experiences. But, you know, to get back to this point, I think having to get it right, not only with regard to the presidential election, but to have your polls conform to what the census is showing about the distribution of the population, or what official statistics are showing about you know, certain patterns of behavior or ownership of things. You have to work hard to make the measures and the questions and the sampling be accurate.